What's good with the YouTube account-based perspective? It's your boy Flacco coming live and direct with my co-host Senor Rojo, and we're sliding through with a little bit of energy, man. Let's get it cracking, man. Since we started doing these spills, we've got a lot of requests about the end-all hostilities, right? About the hunger strikes, about Todd Asker's case, and so forth, right? We were discussing reading the actual case, Todd Asker versus the governor, but we felt it would be more important for us to read, discuss the end-all hostilities agreement that they forwarded out there.
Yes, indeed, man. This is actually from the California Prison Focus, man. It's the article about the agreement to end hostilities from August 12th of 2012. And we'll get right to it, man. It's to whom it may concern and all California prisoners. Greetings from the entire Pelican Bay State Prison SHU Short Corridor Hunger Strike representatives. We're hereby presenting this mutual agreement on behalf of all racial groups here in the Pelican Bay State Prison SHU corridor, wherein we have received a mutual agreement concerning the following points. 1, if we really want to bring about substantiative, meaningful changes to the CDCR system and are matter beneficial to all solid individuals who have never been broken by CDCR's torture tactics intended to coerce one to becoming a state informant via debriefing, that now is the time for us to, I don't understand that, collectively seize this moment in time and put an end to more than 20 to 30 years of hostilities between our racial groups. 2, therefore, beginning on October 10th of 2012, all hostilities between our racial groups in SHU, ADSEG, general population, and county jails will officially cease. This means that from this date on, all racial group hostilities need to be put to an end. And if personal issues arise between individuals, people need to do all they can to exhaust all diplomatic means to settle such disputes. Do not allow personal individual issues to escalate into racial group issues. 3, we also want to warn those in general population that IGI will continue to plant undercover sensitive needs yard SNY debriefer type inmates amongst the solid GP prisoners with orders from IGI to be informers, snitches, rats, and obstructionists in order to attempt to disrupt and undermine our collective group's mutual understanding on issues intended for our mutual cause, i.e. forcing CDCR to open up all GP main lines and return to a rehabilitative type system of meaningful programs, privileges, including lifer conjugal visits, etc., via peaceful protest activity, non-cooperation, e.g. hunger strike, no labor, etc., etc. People need to be aware and vigilant to such tactics and refuse to allow such IGI inmate snitches to create chaos and reignite hostilities amongst our racial groups. We can no longer play in the IGI, ISU, OCS, and SSU's old manipulative divide and conquer tactics. In conclusion, we must all hold strong to our mutual agreement from this point on and focus our time, attention, and energy on mutual causes beneficial to all of us, i.e. prisoners, in our best interests. We can no longer allow CDCR to use us against each other for their benefit, because the reality is that collectively, we are an empowered, mighty force that can positively change this entire corrupt system into a system that actually benefits prisoners and thereby the public as a whole. And we simply cannot allow CDCR, CCPOA, Prison Guards Union, IGI, ISU, OCS, and SSU to continue to get away with their constant form of progressive oppression and warehousing of tens of thousands of prisoners, including the 14,000 plus prisoners held in solitary confinement torture chambers, such as the SHU, ADSEG units, etc., for decades. We send our love and respects to all those of like mind and heart, onward in the struggle and solidarity. Presented by the PBSB, SHU, Short Corridor Collective, Todd Asker, C58191, Arturo Castellanos, C17275, Satawa Nantambu, Jama Dewberry, C35671, Antonio Guillen, P81948, And the representative bodies, Danny Troxell, B76578, George Franco, D46556, Ronnie Yandel, B27927, Paul Red, B72683, James Baridi Williamson, D34288, Alfred Sandoval, D6100, 61,000, Lewis Powell, B59864, Alex Yo, I can't say his last name, H32421, Gabriel Huerta, C80766, Frank Clement, D07919, and Raymond Chavo Perez, K12922. That sums it up. Those are the individuals who, were involved in this agreement, among others, obviously, but those were the main driving forces from each car represented in this end of hostilities hunger strike and the changes that came about from it.
I'm giving you guys a little bit of back history for everybody, man. It was around 2006. I got a wheel up from the Bay, and it was coming from the short corridor. And at that time is when CDC put a new implementation. What they were doing was they were taking out all high-power gang members, not just those that were validated as Northern Structure. They're taking out people that were recognized as high-ranking NF leadership, BGF, AB, and Mexican Mafia members. What they were doing was they were taking them and they were housing them in the units D1 through D4, and they were calling it the short corridor. And what they were doing is they were giving them extra attention to monitor their activities, to suppress their communication to where they couldn't communicate with the main lines. No one was paroling, because most of those guys from D1 to D4, they're already doing life. Therefore, they were trying to cut all communications to where you were going to have to go with your block to legal law library. They were circumventing all forms of communication. And so this is where they messed up, though. This put all, in some senses, it's a good thing. Like, I'm fully supportive of reading this End All Hostilities. However, whatever my opinion is on these prison organizations, it doesn't mean that they're not entitled to human rights and due process.
Not at all.
We was there in the shoe. We went through all those torment and oppression tactics, which CDC does apply. And their excuse is always, oh, we're applying the law. So this was a good thing, man. And the way they decided to get this filtered out to institution is they wrote California Prison Focus. The newsletter, the one that you get when you're in there that everybody gets once a month. And they put that in there and it had all those names and all those signatures. Therefore, it gave everybody the idea this is what we need to do. Same thing with the hunger strikes. This is how they were able to get, filter that information out there,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Flacco, man. That was a monumental agreement, man. Like you said, however we feel about any kind of groups, and I have no animosity toward any group, man. I actually respect the hell out of them, bro, because, especially the group I was aligned with, man, they push a hard line, bro. And it's not an easy thing to be one of those individuals every single day, day in and day out. It's a challenge every morning when you get up to successfully partake in their type of program. And, a lot of these groups have made a lot of sacrifices over the years, you know what I mean? And I can't take nothing away from them personally. So I'm glad, like you said, to see everybody out of the shoe. I hated that place, bro. It was so boring. And at the time, I had maybe 3 assaults on inmates when I got validated, bro. I didn't even have, all the stuff that they made up about my validation because I would not provide information that IGI wanted. They fabricated things. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's happened to. There's a lot of people that have been validated. Everybody knows I got validated when I was a regular norteño, and that would be the equivalent to just what are they, northerner now, so they abuse that system. If you don't comply, if you don't tell, if you don't whatever, you're going to end up in the shoe, and don't get me wrong, there's a reason for the shoe as well. You do a couple things, you got to go sit down for a while, just like there's a reason for prisons and county jails. We as criminals, we take chances, when we participate in this type of activity. It's the same thing when you're inside. If you can't function in the general population, you got to go sit down for a minute. That's just the rules of the game. You can't be mad at it. Those rules and whatever. But just based on associations that in California, you have to make a decision to be a part of one of them sides, or your safety is in danger. You know what I mean?
The great thing about this, right, is regardless, friend, foe, whatever, whatever geographical location you're at, It's everybody coming for a common goal and a common purpose. You know what I'm saying? And it shows when you have a fair and just cause, because what they're fighting for, in my opinion, it holds merit. It's justified.
100%. Yes.
I mean, whatever they're going to do once they get up to the main lines, that's the organizational business. We always know that there's an ulterior motive to these things. That doesn't mean just because you're, you know, I remember being back in the shoe, right? And, you know, it used to frustrate me that you have those guys out there in the main lines. They get all these privileges and incentives. You know, they get their conjugal visits. They get to go $180 a month. They get these pay numbers. They get these trades. And we have to self-educate each other.
Yep.
Saying we had to do our own type of schooling. You know, I didn't learn nothing from CDC. I didn't gather no trades, no nothing. The only thing I got while I was in prison was a discipline, conditioning, and schooling I got from my own people. And they created this. And so when you see the group of masses from different walks of life gather together and say, you know, look, whatever funk we had before, whatever BS we had before, let's put all this shit to the side. We got a common goal here. You unify, we can achieve this goal. And they proved it. You know, Todd Asker was instrumental in putting this thing together, man. You know, and I don't know what inner politics they had to do to create this, to make it work, but it worked. They're all out there in the main lines, and you can't take nothing from them.
You know, it was a whole lot of negotiation that had to go on too, brother. There's no doubt about it.
But I mean, they've had to have been working on this for years. You know what I mean? You can't just put an agreement together like in 6 months and say, let's make this happen. You know what I mean? This took a lot of willing and dealing. Okay, how are we going to coexist? What's the greater good? And then you got to get the support of your own political group. You have to sell it. So when people think about prison politics, sometimes we think about the politics within our own people. This was prison politics being played amongst 4 organizations with a common goal.
Hey, I got a question for you, Flacco. What do you think would have been the results as far as the Northern Collective if them gentlemen would have never went to the feds? If they would have been dealing with Corny, Tibbs, and Pinky versus Chuco and the newer generation of C's?
You know, that's hard to answer, because when they walked into the feds, they walked into a different situation. There wasn't too many NF members in the feds at that time. There wasn't too many Northerners in the feds at that time. The Sureños were deep, and they had their own little implementations that they had worked out with administration that we heard, you know, only put 20 Northerners on the yard, keep the NF off this yard. As soon as Operation Black Widow happened, you had tons of dudes that were, you know what I mean? That wasn't the only indictment that happened at that time. So you had a lot of NF members, a lot of bros, all hit the system at the same time. And these guys had been in the feds, and they've been sitting fat and enjoying life, getting high on their God, doing their thing, whatever. And next thing you know, you got some high power NF members who are definitely with the business. You know what I'm saying? So, whereas opposed to these guys may have relationships with those guys up there in the state. You know what I'm saying? So who's to say that Corny and them wouldn't decide, you know, maybe we could try to coexist out there? I don't know. You can't say that they wouldn't.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just that's always boggled my mind whether, you know, we would have got these same results. And you know, I personally believe we would have. I think we would have.
You think they would?
Yeah, they want to get out of there, bro. They don't want to be in there. Even if they falsely represented their intentions at first, I think they would have got out there, realized they would have remembered what it was like to be out there and you know what can go on out there, and they would have been like, fuck it, it's working. You know what I mean?
But you got to remember, right? What's been the whole sell pitch of the constant struggle this whole time? The oppositions. We got to go out there, secure, educate, and establish. So without that, your cause becomes, it's not as universal appealing to people as it used to be. You get what I'm saying? Therefore, that's why you have a lot of people who are more supportive of the feds. You see in the comments, you see people all the time, I support the feds, I support the feds. I haven't seen one person in our comments ever say they support the state. So
I've seen a couple. Very rare.
It's very rare though. I mean, I'm neutral on it because I think the end all hostility is a good thing. I think the feds, when they stepped in the feds, they stepped into a whole nother animal though. You know what I'm saying? I don't think the what you would consider the federal factions opposition to the feds, I don't think they were ready for those NF members to touch those lines at all.
No.
You know what I mean? What they were able to do with Happy, Skip, and Spider and a few others, man. I mean, they went in there and they were strategic in what they did.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
And
they were 10 steps ahead.
they're
They were
real
10 steps ahead of the game.
they're real butchers too, bro. You know what I mean? If they
Yeah.
can't implement, you know, what they want democratically, bro, they're willing to go as far as needs to be go. Each and every one of those dudes that are initially pulled up, man. So that's a handful for anybody to deal with, bro. When you got
No,
somebody who will go all the way.
You know, but this hasn't been. It wasn't the first time they tried to end all hostilities. They've tried before. You know what I mean? Old man got hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's his name? What's his name got killed, right? Black Jesse got killed over it. You know what I mean? Around 75, he tried to do the same thing. Old man got hit. So this isn't the first time, man. So I don't know what would have been different with those individuals being there. You get what I'm saying?
The era back then wasn't quite time for it yet back then, though, man. This is a whole new day and age. I think the timing just happened to be perfect for what they presented to their people.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was a timing thing. You know, there's a different mindset in convicts now and in inmates. You know, it was the right time. They hit it at the right time for that to be able to happen, bro. There was a lot of things, you know, a lot of stars lined up for that to be able to fly through, no doubt.
And now the feds are pretty much separated.
Yeah.
They don't have no opposition no more. So both sides got what they wanted. The state's able to be out there in the main lines, the feds out there in the main lines, and people are programming. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't think they were ever going to let them guys out of the what you call it, the dungeon in the feds, man. I was real surprised when I heard that they were all running around, you know?
Well, I mean, these laws have changed, man. I mean, the end of all hostilities, man, was just opened up every case. It just opened up everything, man.
Yeah, if you're not making an ass out of yourself, you shouldn't be locked down, bro. I mean, straight up.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that too, bro. I mean, it's like you could be discipline free for 10 years. You know what I mean? Discipline free. And because you don't want to debrief or do this and that, they're going to hold you back. That was the cold thing, man. You remember every time you go to ICC, what's the last thing they tell you before you leave?
Oh, man, I don't remember, brother.
They used to always say, do you want to debrief? Every time.
Yeah, dude, you know, hey, the whole time I was in the Bay, I don't even remember seeing ICC. I know I must have, but I don't remember it at all, bro.
Oh, it was a joke, man.
I think I basically told them, you know what I mean, when they told me to go to ICC, I just hit them with one of those. I think that's what it was. But I don't remember. I remember in the 6 yard always having to go, you know, because you got to go within 10 days of you showing up and this and that. And it was encouraged for you to go for whatever reason. But yeah, see, the one thing about the 6 yard that was tricky too, man, is it was kind of a setup to get validated, because you'd go in there and the homies would tell you which yard to ask to go to. Because when I was there, they had the integrated 1 yard where you could go out and program basically with other groups except Southerners. You know what I mean? You'd be out there with the blacks, the whites. But like when I went, they're like, hey, tell them you want to go to the 6 yard. Man, as soon as you step on that 6 yard, man, that's essentially a validation point, really, you know, for association with known gang members.
Yeah, my validation was all BS, man. I still remember.
I got railroaded. Boy.
I still remember the SSU, the IGI I got was some IGI Schwartz in San Luis Obispo. Where I got validated in CMC East, bro. In the hole.
Damn.
Because I wouldn't act right, because I kept on getting off. I think within like 5 months, I think I got like 3 different batteries on inmates. You know what I mean? And one suspected pegada I had. You know what I'm saying? So by the time I got to Corcoran Shoe, man, they had me. I was one of the first persons at that time to be put on walk alone status in the shoe when they still had group yards based upon my violence.
Anyway, YouTube, man, you know, we just wanted to touch on that. I know we've done an end of hostilities episode before. It was one of our first ones, man, and it did great. We just wanted to give you guys the word for word, you know, of the agreement that was reached by, you know, the gentlemen in power in the short corridor back in the days, and they were successful, man. I tip my hat to them. You know, if this would have happened a lot sooner, there'd probably be less people that walked away. You know, they'd have them sedatives. A lot of people just got tired of the shoes and stuff, man. So I tip my hat. Good job. You know, you guys have been working on that for years. It happened, and it's been almost a decade now that everybody's been out there and it's been able to maintain, man. And that's a good thing for everyone involved, man. You know, be able to do your time with the incentives and privileges entitled to a convict. I know that sounds familiar to some of y'all, but man, me and Flacco both send ours. We congratulate that movement, you know, 100%. And hopefully there'll be some more changes in the future. And, you know, maybe me or Flacco will get on later on tonight live and we can discuss this, whatnot. Until then, have a good day. This is your boy Rojo with the big homie Flacco. And have a great rest of your
Same
Thursday.
mindset.
100%, man.